after having lost a loved one. And first off, if I haven't said it, I'm really sorry for your loss. We in my family just went through somewhat of the same thing, and it always chokes me up when I have to deal with it in my patients because it certainly touches everyone. And that's the problem is we're not immune to loss. And if you think you are, it's going to surprise you very quickly one of these days. As you get older, inevitably. But there are some benefits to the mourning process. And whether you like it or not, you will have to go through the mourning process. In Catholicism, we have the wake. I'm not sure if it started with Christianity, but the wake is a tool for loved ones to go through this letting go process. I believe in my Hebrew patients there's something called sitting Shiva. And whether you stay in one place for 7 days and have others comfort you, or you go to the wake and you pay your condolences. And by the way, those of you who like to avoid going to wakes because it makes you feel upset, well, it's not for you, it's for the family members. So get it out of your head and provide the support. Even if you weren't close to the family members of the loved one that you might have been with, friends with, associated with, or related to, you really have to, that's when we need the support. And even if it's just to see you in the background or to pay respects and leave, it's going to come around to you, so please, it helps the family. And that's what I'm going to talk about is, there are certainly things that I would say to do or concentrate on when you're going through the mourning process. But the ritual of this thing is a way when you disconnect physically with that person that you might have had a relationship with. During the process, it forces you to go over that relationship and to think about that relationship and how that person meant to you and how the loss is going to affect you. And we don't have to dwell or ruminate about they're not going to be here, but I think it's an honorable time to go through the mind's process of memories. And you don't have to, again, ruminate on the fact that they're not here, but going through the memory process will help you settle what you're feeling. During times of sorrow, whether you lose a job, a loved one, get bullied, late for work, lose your house, move to a different school, whatever it is, or you have a medical disease that comes up, whatever it is, there is a reactive depression that happens with that. In the loss of life, there is a mourning process. And again, it's a tough feeling when you go through it, but when you come out the other side, which most of us do, when you come out the other side, you should feel a sense of balance that you had never felt before. And if you're not coming out the other side, and there are some specifics on how to template for major depression versus mourning versus other diseases, if you're not sure or you're having a tough time getting over it, it would be important to seek out help. Our behavioral health services, whether psychiatry or counseling, psychology, guided imagery, mindful practice, they're all very empowering and very helpful to get through life. I think everybody should really participate. I do. I did for the time that I left medicine back in 2005 when I was very upset with the direction medicine was going. I left medicine for about 18 to 20 months and I moved away. And luckily I didn't listen to the news that forced me to feel that way, and I got some counseling. I was actually on Zoloft for a short amount of time because I didn't know any other way. But through that process, it wasn't loss of life, but through that process, I learned to reflect and see exactly where I was, what my life was supposed to be in this world. And that's the benefit of the mourning process. You certainly have to disconnect physically, but it just tells you to slow down, take into account where you are, take into account your relationship with the one that was lost, and then get a better picture of what you're supposed to be doing in this world. especially with not having that person around anymore. You really have to sit down, establish your roots, get grounded again, and move forward. If you don't, that's where disease manifests. That's where we don't eat. That's where we feel depressed and withdraw from society. And instinctually, with any animal species, when you are depressed, you have a disease process. You're not with the herd. You're not with the protection of the herd. You're supposed to be killed off and eaten by predators. That's why the diseased will slow down, become depressed, not eat anymore, and eventually have a disease process that takes their lives. Because we are human and we're not primitive animal, we have ways around that. And before I get off topic, medicines do work. I know a lot of you that watch me and follow me and come to my clinic try to do it without medicines, but medicines do work. And that's where I'll have to give you the plea that don't just poo-poo all the medicines, because if we need something in a very fast rescue, then we go with medicines and we go to psychiatrists. And even if the doc experience with behavioral health is just in and out, refill medicines, well, that's all that's necessary to get you past the hump while you manipulate with the therapist, psychologist, counselor, social worker, while you manipulate life with the therapists and work with getting yourself back to your new position in life, medicines might be necessary. But in the case where we're going through the mourning process and you want to avoid medicines, there are great lifestyle changes that you can take into account. So mourning can be depressive. It is depressive. It's that time period, but there is a finite amount of time when we say it's considered normal. And then there's another amount of time we go over that when we say it might not be normal, might actually be mild to moderate depression. And only a doctor can help you figure that out. And I would seek the help of your primary care doctor or your internal medicine doctor to figure that stuff out. But in the case of trying to work during the mourning process, I think there's a couple things that I would get going. Number one, support is always important. That's where that wake is important. That's where touching base with old family members is important. That's where we, as the other surviving members, always give the support to the family to know that there is hope. And there will be support. So when you're alone, it makes a depressive symptom. Sorry about that. But when you're alone, it makes a depressive symptoms even worse, because it's almost like the person that you used to love and identified with is gone. Sometimes it's very lonely. And again, lonely drives that self-defeating, ruminating process of those thoughts into the limelight. When actually it's okay to address them, embrace them, live with it, but we're supposed to move forward. And if you can't move forward, get the support, whether it's family members, a confidant, a counselor, or a psychiatrist. It's important to seek out support because you're not alone. And that's why my next point of moving, exercise, is very important. Number one, exercise does give you an endorphin release and an enkephalin release, and that's a great hormone. Then usually with that, there will be also getting out to nature, for example. I just took a group out to Glacial Park this morning, and it was nice because we got to our summit and we just sat there for a little bit and just realized we're on top of this mound and we're just looking over this beautiful nature, this preserve, and thinking, and when you have no choice, even if you're at your wit's end and you're down and you're just sorrowful, when you get into nature and you get to a pristine vista, it will make you feel like you're a part of something else greater. It just is so, there's so much humility that will come into that one spot. All you have to do is get to a spot and just sit there and you will feel good. Because if you believe in energy medicine, the vibration of nature gets to support you. You start to minimize your sorrow of your small plight that you're in and you're suffering, and realize there's other things in this world that are going on that you're actually a part of, and it's exciting to be a part of. It's reassuring to know that you're not the only one. So exercise, getting out to nature, getting grounded on a regular basis would be very important. Seeing the sun is also very important, not only for its vitamin D, but also because it's energizing. Again, when you are trapped in a small room or you're looking at a screen, it's not the same as getting outside, even if it's just for a short time during the day. It helps you detract from that idea that keeps on bouncing around your head, and again, gives you a little bit of a break for a short amount of time. And when you feel a little break for a short amount of time and you have a little mindful practice, it will increase doses of serotonin that are being created by your body. Your brain and your gut can make serotonin, but sometimes it's not good enough, and that's why you have to take Prozac, Zoloft, Paxil, Lexapro. All those medicines do jack up serotonin artificially, and maybe that's what's necessary, but if you can do it in addition naturally, why not? And by the way, if you're not taking enough vitamin D, if you're found to be low on vitamin D, that means between 50 and 70 as far as the measurement. I don't go with the 30 that most labs approve. Then increase your vitamin D. And there are a lot of other supplements that also should be included. Ali mentioned that she's on fish oil, turmeric, biotin for her skin and hair, Super B, vitamin C, and zinc. I don't have any problem with the standards. I think vitamin C at high dose, sometimes IV if you can get it, very helpful for any disease process. Super B's definitely. Zinc, if you're deficient on zinc and your doctor has checked it, then take it. The only problem with zinc is it sometimes knocks off copper, so you can't take zinc for a long amount of time without the copper, so be careful. Fish oil, definitely. And I've actually put it here as the top of my list because it's so easy to get, but it has to be a maximum dose. Whether you follow EPA or DHA or just total omega-3 oils, try to maximize on it, and that would be 2,000 milligrams of total omega-3 twice a day. You should be able to get past the burping part, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. I don't think you have to worry about mercury with fish oils. If you can't take fish oil, you can do flaxseed. It's not as much. It's harder to absorb with some Americans, but whatever you do, try to increase. And if you can increase on the oils naturally, avocado, walnuts, fish, then go do it. Cooking with olive oil is also important, walnut oil, grapeseed oil, all that's important. Staying away from processed foods, foods that will bring you down, will cause a psychological or a insulin response, insulin dump, like high carbohydrate foods. Has to be healthy carbs. You need carbs, especially if you're exercising, like we said over here, but it has to be low glycemic index carbs. So try to make it a healthy, well-balanced diet. St. John's wort, I think, is a great rescue. More so than turmeric. Turmeric's for inflammation, Ali. It can help with inflammation in the long run if you have a joint problem or skin problem, but I think if we're going to try to bullet, and that's all I have to do, is take only a few things, see if they work for about a month or 3 months, and then add or subtract. You got to save money too. You can't just throw a big net out. Also, otherwise you're not going to know which thing helped you. So St. John's wort has been shown to help. I follow Consumer Labs as far as the ones that they approve, and St. John's wort starting at 300 milligrams 3 times a day, then jacking up until you get to 3 capsules of 300 milligrams 3 times a day. That's max dose. Sometimes St. John's wort does have some interactions with a lot of medicines, with HIV medicines, so you have to be careful. Ask your doctor, ask your pharmacist, or your herbalist. But I think it's a great thing. It does take a little bit of time before it works. SAMe, I've heard some people try, but I think SAMe in the studies has done better for increasing the Hamilton rating scale for anxiety more so than depression. So I would stick with St. John's wort. Don't do both together. Fish oil and St. John's wort, no problem. But if you have medicines that you're already taking, you have to let your doctor know. 5-HTP is great. I use it for nighttime myself. It helps. It's the building block for serotonin. And as I mentioned, serotonin, when it's low, will put you into depression. So try to find the 5-HTP that's good for you. Again, I use Consumer Labs, but this is where if you're already on Zoloft, Paxil, Prozac, Lexapro, you have to be careful, Cymbalta, because sometimes the 5-HTP will cause a serotonin reaction or a syndrome, and you have to make sure, if I was going to use it, I would use it first, and then after having established this stuff, then you can take the SSRIs or the other medicines from the psychiatrist. But 5-HTP, usually at about 50 to 200 milligrams at night, fantastic. No alcohol. During this time, alcohol, initially when you use alcohol, it's a stimulant, but after a while, alcohol becomes a depressant. You don't want to add to the depression or the mood that you're already suffering from. So avoid alcohol during this, fast from alcohol during this time that we're going through the mourning process. In addition, aromatherapy is fantastic because all these things, you have to use things to help, but you have to also make sure they don't harm. Aromatherapy just because it's aromatherapy, will not harm you, unless it's like skunk therapy, but you're not going to be smelling skunk all day. So obviously I'm being funny, but aromatherapy, I love Young Living. I used to sell it, but now I just use it. I use Panaway for inflammation, but for mood, there's something called Peace and Calm by Young Living. For me, it's fantastic. The thing with aromatherapy, though, is if you ask a aromatherapist, I have one at the Claremont Herb Shop in Claremont, Florida. If you ask a aromatherapist how to properly dose aromatherapy, you actually have to go visit, get tested, kind of whiff and waft and listen or smell the different blends, or the different single essential oils, and then the blends. So sometimes you can get companies that blend them for you. Sometimes you can test out the smell or the aroma in the shops that have them, or the testers. But you should be able to feel a uplifting kind of sensation when you go through aromatherapy. Last night I had a little problem sleeping because I was getting excited about the hike I was going to lead this morning. So I was a little bit wide awake, so I used sandalwood with jojoba oil. I just tapped it on my pillow to help calm me during the nighttime. And aromatherapy works great. You can even eat aromatherapy or take it internally, like what I did for the marathon. I ran out of Panaway, which I was using for my trigger points in my IT band syndrome during the last two marathons, 2009, 2010. By the time I was halfway, 13 miles, I ran out of the Panaway that I had in my bag, and I started licking the bag. So good therapeutic grade aromatherapy or essential oils should be able to be eaten or taken internally. But obviously aromatherapy, if you're going to use it, I would try to find one in a roll-on. That way you can roll it underneath your nose, on your wrists, around your neck, to remind you during the day. Again, you can't overdose on it. Remind you during the day about calming. Again, it just brings you out of that circle of ruminating bad ideas to break that with something intense. And these are by no way intense, but if you stimulate the aromatherapy or the nose, the olfactory nerves, it kind of resets the brain quickly. I don't think you can overdose on it. I think it's a great supplement. Think about it, but you might have to go to experiment with a couple of different aromatherapy bars. So in a nutshell, and I did mention low carbohydrate dieting because it will be tempting to eat anything that you want just because you feel you deserve it. But just like the alcohol, it might be tempting to do a shot and forget about your depressive ideas, your thoughts, just for a millisecond. But you're going to pay at the end of that, whether we wait 3 hours after the alcohol is gone and you're even worse than before, or we wait an hour after the chocolate is eaten and you have that insulin crash and you're going to be hunting for more stuff. So food and alcohol will cause an emotional reaction. It causes a hormonal reaction, so be careful. Again, if you pretend that you're training for a sporting event, an Olympics, or some kind of performance in about 3 months, well, you stay on your game as far as getting to sleep at the same time every day, eating the same time every day, trying to smile every day, trying to get in the sun every day, and trying to train every day. If you do that thinking the morning process you'll get over it. There's no template that says it's going to be done in 3 months, 6 months, 2 weeks. But if you stay on your game and try to do the best you can with living a healthy lifestyle during those times, it's tough. But that's why you need the support, because sometimes if you have the confidant or the family members to keep on pushing you into saying, okay, did you eat already? Did you go to sleep on time? How did you do that? What are you doing this weekend? I think it's very important to keep on going and powering through. I think your loved one that you're missing will want you to have done that for them, for you. Nobody wants to see you suffer, but hopefully this does give you a little bit of a template. Everybody's a little different, but this is a little bit of a template. And by all means, if things are just circling downhill, you got to seek professional help. And sometimes other alternative medicines are helpful. Medicine therapies like acupuncture, yoga, breath technique, that's all important in this whole mix. It's the recipe that has to be derived for you, since you're not going through this. You've never gone through this before and you're being forced to do it suddenly. It's hard to get the recipe down when you don't know how to cook per se, but there are a lot of other cooks out there who can help you through this process and hopefully get you through without a snag. So if this is the first time you're finding me, for everybody else, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and then the alert button also to tell you when I've put out other videos. So Allie, hopefully this helps you get through it.